From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende. Ryan Shotgun, my co-pilot, Andre Johnson Jr. He's here each and every episode. Before we get into today's content, though, be sure to like, share, rate, review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. We got another one today. It's a new week. It's Monday. But first and foremost, my friend, did you have a good weekend? Anything in particular jump off in the Johnson household?
You know, it was one of those weekends I just didn't want to go anywhere or do anything. But, you know, we got Mother's Day coming up, so I had to do some Mother's Day shopping. My sister's graduating from grad school next weekend, so we're going to Missouri. So, you know,
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
got to do some grad gift shopping.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
My relaxation weekend turned into a shopping weekend.
Okay, yeah, I had a few things to attend to this weekend. It was a good weekend to get just hang out with the family and enjoy a few events, and we were able to do so. So now we have moved into a new week. It is Monday. This is now a rookie mini camp week. The rookies will arrive here at some point this week, and they'll have their official rookie mini camp Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week, I believe. We'll see exactly what day we get the availability for. We'll get the exact notification. It's not open to the public, so it's not like something that fans can go and see, but they do give us one day to go out and watch them. That's down the road. This is now this week, though, or today, I wanted to get into some. First off, awesome job last week with the pod. We got some really good numbers and some really good comments. So just appreciate you guys tuning in, checking us out as we had a lot of different topics last week that clearly resonated with our audience here on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. But one thing that we didn't intentionally miss, but now that the week has kind of come and gone, and it's a pretty relevant topic, and the Saints made a pretty significant decision on a first-round pick, and that's where I wanted to stick with the big picture here today. Yeah,
the big picture revolves around a man by the name of Payton Turner. Mm-hmm. The Saints decided not to pick up Payton Turner's fifth-year option. Now, when you draft a player in the first round, all of those first-round players, you have an option to pick up a fifth-year option. Now, and the Saints declining that. Payton Turner's cap hit this year is going to be about $3.9 million. If they were to pick up his option in 2025, it would have been $13.9 million. The Saints declining to take that on, instead saying they're going to wait on Payton Turner. Now, them declining the option doesn't necessarily mean he won't be a Saint in the future, Sean, but when you heard that, what did it mean to you?
Well, first off, I wasn't surprised. And secondly, it's a little weird the way they do it in the NFL. You have to declare the fifth-year option before their fourth year.
Right.
So if there's a late bloomer or if there's a guy that's been red hot through his first 3 years of his career, sometimes the fifth-year option is worth it. Sometimes it's better to get ahead of an extension. Sometimes it's just better to bypass it altogether because a prospect is simply not there. Unfortunately, that is the case for Payton Turner. It really brings me back to the actual night of the draft in 2021. First off, Payton Turner's name leaked late, very late in the process. It was an Adam Schefter tweet talking about teams have been circling around Payton Turner out of Houston. He was on absolutely no one's radar that covered the draft, linking to the Saints in 2021. And like I said, it was a late leaked name. I can recall Payton Turner didn't even have a camera in his house. I mean, I don't even think he expected to be a first-round pick that night, and he was someone that just was not on anyone's radar. The Saints that year wanted to trade up so bad. They wanted to trade up so bad, but they were picking at 28. It's a long way to go up, and it's tough. I mean, you're that far back, you're basically into the second round and trying to go all the way up, depending on what assets you have to go up. The Saints wanted to, they couldn't do it, and then their pick comes up at 28. They end up with Payton Turner. There was another pass rusher on the board. His name was Gregory Rousseau. He's with the Buffalo Bills now, almost equal size when it came to dimensions and productivity. But look, 3 years in, it hasn't happened. We know that. And on the surface, the actual individual player, he just hasn't been healthy. I'll get to that in a second. But realistically, this just symbolizes the frustration, Payton Turner I'm talking about, of the lackluster performance, the lackluster development, the lack of hits on the big men they've invested in and the ones they've swung and missed on really since 2018. You talk about Marcus Davenport in 2018. 2020, look, Cesar Ruiz, at least he's a starter, but I don't think anyone would put him in the top half of the league at right guard. 2021, we're talking about Payton Turner. 2022, Trevor Penning. I mean, we're kind of waiting for the light bulb to go off with him. We'll see what happens this year. They haven't given up on him. We said that, but nonetheless, through 2 years, he has not really shown anything. And look, you can even dip into 2023. We'll see what happens with Isaiah Foskey, but it's another high-end draft investment in a player at the defensive end position. All this really says to me is, look, Payton Turner, this is your last chance.
Yeah.
Last chance. And not just this season, last chance. This may be your last chance at training camp, because there's no guarantee he makes it through the training camp and survives the final cuts. In fact, it's a pretty loaded room, and there's no guarantee, and has really done nothing in his career up to this point to say he truly deserves a spot, and it should not be guaranteed. It should not be a foregone conclusion heading into July's training camp. So he's a guy that hopefully this offseason has focused on getting healthy, and hopefully he takes the proper amount of urgency needed in training camp to feel like he's fighting for a spot, because that is where he is and that's where it needs to be. And the Saints told him that by declining their fifth-year option. We've discussed this, a lot. The defensive end room. I mean, it's a lot of unanswered questions. There's still a lot of bodies. You talk about Granderson, who, in my opinion, has passed him up.
Yep.
Back in 2022, there were games where Granderson was getting the start over Payton Turner, Cam Jordan, Falsky, Chase Young, Tanu. So to me, there is no definite path for Payton Turner just because he was a former first-round pick. And for Turner, it's simple. I said it a minute ago. He can't stay on the field. And if you can't stay on the field, you can't develop. And if you can't develop, you just become just sort of just this really, like, athletic-looking guy, but really nothing to show for it. So you're basically almost like just someone that's just kind of there, and you're just hoping and hoping and hoping. He's missed 36 games in 3 seasons. 36 games in 3 seasons. In 3 seasons, he has averaged 12 absences a season. There's only 17 games in a season, folks. Yep. You can do the math. And look, what makes his development or his situation or his lack thereof of development is that it came on the heels of the Marcus Davenport debacle, where you traded up, and it was still not the exact same scenario, but small-ish type school. Houston's not a small school. UTSA, obviously a small school, but a guy had a little bit of a wild card in terms of, okay, this guy's gonna probably need some time to develop, and injuries have just cost him, just like it did with Marcus Davenport. So back-to-back high-end premier investments in the defensive end position to basically follow the exact same path can be maddening. It's frustrating, and obviously it's a situation where they're at kind of their last ropes here. Now, in saying that, hopefully the light bulb comes on for Payton Turner, and he can stay healthy, and he's a guy that he can figure it all out, because, I mean, he has shown in the very little bit of time he's been on the field that he has been disruptive in very small spurts. I can remember the Carolina game his rookie year. I can remember there was a game in 2022. What game am I missing? It's so few and far between, but he would have bursts of athleticism. You say, okay, maybe that's it. Maybe that's that, but it hasn't been nearly consistent enough. And forget just, can he develop into that player? Can he be healthy enough to get on the field to become that player, or to even start the process of becoming that player? And that's really where it's been with Payton Turner. In fact, you can say at this point, probably been a bigger disappointment than Marcus Davenport in terms of where he's at in his development. The only thing is, Davenport, they gave up the future first-round pick. They go up and get him. Payton Turner's case, they sat back and he kind of fell to him. But this was a pick that didn't make sense, that caught everybody off guard when it happened 3 or 4 years ago. And now that we sit here in this spot and they're declining the fifth-year option, I think a lot of people are not surprised. So big picture is this: Payton Turner get healthy. Payton Turner be ready to tear it up in camp, because I don't think your roster spot is guaranteed.
Definitely. And when you look at the production of a Payton Turner, 29 total tackles, 3 sacks in 3 seasons. He's appeared in, not started, just appeared in 15 of a possible 51 games. You mentioned the 36 games that he missed due to injury. And it's important to note that Payton Turner, it's not like he walked into a situation where, like, oh, man, it's going to be difficult for this rookie to play.
Yeah.
There was a window of opportunity
no doubt about it,
to play a big role on this Saints defense. The void left by Trey Hendrickson that was begging for somebody to come in and fill it. instead of him being the one to fill it, you've seen a lot of guys be in that spot, but ultimately the guy who did it best, you could argue, was Carl Granderson last season.
Yeah.
A guy who Payton Turner, being a first-round draft pick, had a bit of an advantage over and getting playing time, but Granderson stepped in and made the most of that opportunity. You've got an aging Cameron Jordan on the other side, somebody who could potentially come in and spell some reps for him. Payton Turner hasn't given you a reason to believe that he can do that right now. And just to show you what the Saints think of Payton Turner, outside of them not picking up this option, they drafted Isaiah Foskey.
Exactly.
A pass rusher. In the second round, that's high. They signed Chase Young to a one-year prove-it deal. It seems like the Saints are already kind of potentially preparing for life without Payton Turner, because so far in his first 3 years, he just has not given you the production that you would want. And like you mentioned in training camp, it's going to be a fight for him to rise up that depth chart at defensive end, because there's 6 of them in there, and you could argue Payton Turner's probably 6th.
Yeah,
of the 6 of them.
Absolutely, especially when you talk about Tana, who can kick inside, and you talk about how thin they've been at defensive tackle. So yeah, I think you're right. Now you're going to keep 6 defensive ends on your final 53. I don't know. I mean, that's a toss up for me.
Exactly, because you look at the reasons why other people would play. Why would Carl Granderson play in that spot? The production he's shown on the field. Why would Cam Jordan? The production and the veteran presence that he has. Why would Tano? The production and the versatility that he's shown on the field. You know, Chase Young, he's shown he was pretty productive at defensive end last season. You paid him a lot of money to come here. You look at Payton Turner. Why would he play? Because you spent a first-round draft pick on him? Because the production hasn't been there like it's been there for some of the other guys in that room. Now, it is, again, worth noting, just because you don't pick up a player's 5th-year option, that doesn't necessarily mean it's over for them, because the Saints didn't pick up Cesar Ruiz's 5th-year option, and he wound up signing, I believe it was a 4-year extension. So there is a window and an opportunity for Payton Turner to come out, prove that he can still give you high-end production, or at this point, just any production at that defensive end position, and stay in the black and gold. We saw Cesar Ruiz did it. On the opposite side of the spectrum, a guy you mentioned earlier, Marcus Davenport, they did pick up his 5th-year option, and they still let him walk. So we still got about a year to see where this is going to go with Payton Turner, but he's got to start making some waves soon.
Yeah, and honestly, I think, when you look at, the defensive end position, it should be a wide open thing. Like, I don't think any spot should be guaranteed to anyone. And look, Cam's probably going to get the honorary first team reps when it comes to, off-season stuff. And he's a guy, he loves the off-season, he loves training camp and that sort of stuff. But I mean, this should be look, we've got to get better here. We have got to have some sort of emergence of someone at this position, hopefully 2 at either side. So it should be a wide open scenario for someone to come in and compete. But the fact that the guy you invested in 2021, 3 years later, is now potentially 6th in the pecking order, that's a hard pill to swallow. And honestly, we've had this discussion. When you go back to the one guy they got right at that position, Trey Hendrickson, doesn't quite fit the prototype. Okay, so he's a little bit shorter arms. I think he's about 6'4", 260 in that range. And then you went for the 6'6", 260 guy and Marcus Davenport, the 6'6", 265 guy, 270 guy, and Payton Turner. And now, look, we'll see what happens with Isaiah Foskey. I don't want to make it seem like the light bulb's not going to come on for him, because it very well could. Year 1 and year 2 is a huge jump, particularly in the line of scrimmage. But to me, that's why we had this pod before. Taking a hard look at that edge pass rusher prototype was a very important thing for this team to do. Now, they didn't draft one. They didn't draft one in this draft, an edge guy.
No.
I think they got a couple of undrafted ranks. But
they got a defensive tackle.
But the lack of development in the last 2 guys who were very clear size, speed, and just height, weight measurables was a big thing that stood out for both guys when it comes to Davenport and Turner. To me, that would have been enough to maybe cause a tweak in my approach to prototype when it comes to edge pass rusher. But in the grand scheme of things, this is Turner's last chance. I mean, and would you agree with me that his roster spot is not guaranteed?
Oh, yeah, definitely not. It's not a guarantee that when we get to September, whatever, when the opening day is, that Payton Turner, forget being a starter, will even be on the roster. But I guess the silver lining for him is what you said. This should be a very wide open competition, because when you think about OTAs, mini camp, training camp. Keep in mind, Chase Young is not going to be there for a lot of that. The report is he should be healthy by training camp, but if that recovery doesn't go well and maybe he's healthier closer to preseason, that means you've got a training camp without Chase Young out there giving you competition for reps. Cameron Jordan, like you said, he probably gets grandfathered into a lot of first-team reps, but you've got Isaiah Foskey, who on the field production-wise, he's shown just about as much as Payton Turner has, because it's been 1 year he didn't get that many opportunities. You know, Tano Passanio, Carl Granderson, you're going to have to fight for reps against them, but, like, there's a chance for him to come out in training camp and show, like, hey, I'm still that guy that you picked round 1, pick 28, especially with no Chase Young and Cam Jordan kind of being an aging player.
And I want to see if you kind of see that in his body language. Like, there's a sense of urgency that can lead to a, hey, don't forget about me, I'm still here kind of approach. Because look at all these guys. Cam Jordan, look, there's a strong chance this could be his last year, okay? Carl Granderson's a guy that's emerged.
Yeah.
Foskey, we don't know. Chase Young, he probably won't even be present for OTAs and probably some at training camp, like you mentioned. Tano's a guy that's more of a versatile veteran depth type piece. And then now Payton Turner, the first rounder we keep waiting on. So he's in a spot where there's an opportunity, but there's also a realistic view of this could be your last opportunity. So so treat this offseason, this offseason program as such, because I'm not even sure. Like, if I were thinking right now, the first team Saints defensive line, I guess you put Cam Jordan in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Brian Brzee, Colin Saunders, Granderson.
Either Granderson or Chase Young.
Or Chase Young. Yeah. Well, yeah. You know what? I'll go Chase Young because of the investment if he's healthy.
And then what? Then Granderson maybe mixes in with Cam Jordan, but like that's a solid 4 looking at the roster right now.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a lot to move one of those guys, especially Chase Young because of the investment, and Carl Granderson because you could argue he was your best defender last year.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a lot to move one of those guys off.
Who's the 4th guy? Who's the 5th guy? I don't think there's room for 6. I just don't think there's room for 6.
It's going to come down to we've been talking about training camp battles. Isaiah Foskey versus Payton Turner.
Yeah.
That might be an interesting one to watch.
Who ultimately gets that nod? It's going to be an interesting one to watch. But, yeah, like the Saints declining that, wasn't a surprise to me, and it brought back the 2021 draft, which was the draft where, if memory serves me correctly, Jeff Ireland was pretty vocal about the fact that it was coming off the COVID year and there was less information about that class to make the full evaluation that they would have liked, and they went into that class not feeling confident about all the grades, about all the prospects. Now, they hit on 2, Pete Werner and Paulson Adebo, have 2 solid starters going into contract years, but clearly that was something they were nervous about going in. I think the nervousness has been validated with now that, he's been in the league 3 years and he's played, 15 games in 3 years?
Yep.
Yeah, obviously that's an issue. So, Payton Turner, we'll see what the future holds for him.
Yep, and it'll be interesting. That's the fun part about this year as you get into the point where it's like, oh, man, as a sports department, our content starts to sink, but when we get into that rookie camp, the OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and you really get to lock in on these battles and not necessarily the big high-profile battles. I mean, we talked about it. Some of the most interesting battles in this Saints roster right now could be for backup spots.
Yeah.
The quarterback 2 spot, the wide receiver 3 spot, this DN 3 or DN 4 spot. It's going to be really interesting and fun to watch as we get into these next few months.
And that's why I like this part of the calendar. It can appear slow, but for someone like me, like, it allows me to kind of reorganize a little bit and just kind of relay out the board and just freshen up on film. Like, for instance, right now I'm going through all the Saints offense from last year, just going through game to game, just kind of refreshing on stuff and just kind of see where things stand. And this was certainly an interesting development out of Saints camp, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last bit of development. We'll be back on Wednesday with another topic, but for now, anything else for us today?
Oh, we're good.
All right, that'd be a good one. Nice, quick, short, sweet podcast today for Andre Johnson Jr. I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.